Good afternoon and welcome to our third episode, or technically second official episode of ECC Essentials. I'm Halcyon Frank. I am the Director of Training and Development for the Denise Amberly Foundation. And today I have with me Chris from Convey 911. And we're going to talk about communicating with callers who are non-English speaking. I'm really excited to get into this, Chris, because although I live in Nebraska and I think the assumption would be we're all sticking to one language around here, we actually do have quite a bit of diversity and some different things. So definitely becoming more of a common topic. So I will pass it to you and let you introduce yourself and get it going.
Awesome. Thank you, Halcyon, so much. I'm Chris Dew. I am the sales for Convey 911, and we are a language-based platform, a communication tool that primarily focuses on language. And I want to thank you so much for having us. And on a quick side note, I just want to thank you for the recent Be the Difference conference and for allowing us there. And it was such a good conference. So many great people that we met and such a great vibe. Really, really appreciated being a vendor there and getting to meet you and Nate and the whole team. And it was so great. So thank you for that.
It was a good time. We were glad to have you guys there. Yeah. And for anybody watching or listening, we expect for you to be there next year, just so you know.
Have to be there. One of the best conferences we've attended so far. So awesome. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of dive into this and share my screen. So if you let me know if you can see everything, all good?
Yep, I think it is up and ready to go.
Great. So what we're going to say, and this kind of sums it up, is how do we communicate with those that can't communicate with us? And this has been a problem that we've had. I come from a 25-year background in public safety as a firefighter paramedic. One of our other partners, equally as long, actually longer, she started her career as a 911 dispatcher, finished her career way later, and she was a captain back assigned to the 911 center. And we talked about this, and she said over the course of her career, so over 30 years from being initially a 911 dispatcher, a fire dispatcher, to being a captain back in the 911 center, there was the same process as when somebody who did not speak English or was limited English would call in. They had to do the same thing to try to get that information. And we know that's a very long, a very arduous task. And it shouldn't be right now. So we've tried to find ways to make that quicker, to streamline that, to get the right information to the call taker so they can get the right resources to the right people in the right amount of time. And that's their goal. That is the goal of this industry in a nutshell, is get the information and pass it along to get, again, as we say, the right resources to the right person in the right amount of time. So that's kind of our goal, in to streamline that process. So this number, 66 million people in the U.S. speak a language other than English in their home, 22% of the population, and that is increasing regularly. We all know that diversity in our neighborhoods is growing. Every neighborhood you go to, and I don't care where this is in the country, we travel coast to coast, and everybody says, like, wow, language didn't used to be a problem, but that's growing. That's growing drastically. In your urban cities, definitely a big issue. We come from Baltimore. Baltimore has very significant challenges when it comes to language, and the amount of different languages that we're encountering constantly. And it's not just for a while, it was Spanish. So maybe you were able to hire some Spanish-speaking 911 specialists for your center. Well, it's not just Spanish anymore. It's Spanish. It's I think we talked to people in 180 different languages they see on a regular basis.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a lot. It's growing and it's growing and it's growing. And it's just something that we as an industry, we have to prepare for. We have to do better at making sure that we have the resources available to talk to these people. So I thought this was pretty interesting. Last week was the 55th anniversary of the first 911 call. So 911 is relatively still young, and you think of it in the grand scheme of things. 55 years since somebody first picked up the phone, called 911 to get help. So in the 80s, in the mid 80s, live human-based interpretation services became a thing in 911 services. So it was calling another number, looping in a live interpreter, trying to figure out what language that person was speaking, who was calling, and then finding an interpreter who could speak that. That hasn't changed. Here we are, from the mid 80s to now, it's 2023, and that has not changed across the country. Many of our PSAPs, many of our ECCs across the country are still utilizing that exact same concept today. And it's slow. We've heard so many, I want to say horror stories from across the country about, getting people on the line, getting interpreters on the line who are not ready for a 911 call. They're answering a call and realizing that they're relaying CPR instructions or, helping somebody with a choking child, and they freak out and they hang up the phone. And that's leaving our 911 specialist on the other end with no ability to communicate with these people anymore. And it's unacceptable if you ask us. And I think that we have got to do better in this time and age. We've got to do better with that situation.
I think it also, like, just growing up, like, pop culture, when I think of that, I think back to like Law and Order SVU reruns, and like, you don't realize that, yes, in New York, they could go and they'd be like, we need this really obscure, and all of a sudden they had it, right? Because it was TV too. But the rest of us, we don't have those options, but we're still trying to do it like we've been doing it. And obviously it's not working as well as it should have.
And it's not. And I mean, it worked for a while, and it does. There is absolutely 100% need for live human-based interpretation.
Yes.
That is not something that will ever go away. But there's also, we have all this other technology that's available to us that can help bridge that gap. I mean, we've talked to, at different times, you would think this should be an instantaneous thing, but we're talking to people, to ECCs and to telecommunicators who are telling us, sometimes it takes a minute and a half to get that information, up to 4 minutes. And then with fringe languages, we're talking, it's unacceptable. I mean, I tell a story from my fire department days of, I was in a major city in the mid-Atlantic, of, we get a call for the unknown. And because we can't wait to dispatch units, so our 911 specialists they're not sitting there waiting for this interpreter. They're getting units on the street because that's what they have to do. So they're sending units. We get a call for an unknown situation. And we're in a pretty decent sized city. We've got EMS units, fire apparatus, and police, all coming from different sides of the city. We're all blowing through red lights because we don't do anything slow. We know that. And we get to the intersection of 4th and O to find a gentleman who understood that 911 equals help. And he called 911 for help. And when we finally got an interpreter, he was looking for Starbucks.
Which, to be fair, in my world, that can classify as an emergency.
It can.
I'm just saying.
It absolutely can. Every morning when my alarm goes off, that's an emergency. I will give you that. But I mean, the safety issues that created by sending all these units, all of these resources from all around the city, taking resources away from what could be another significant call. If that 911 specialist could have maybe just sent a text to that person or used some other technology to get that person to just say, hey, Starbucks? Okay, everybody pump the brakes for a second.
Right.
Let's find a Starbucks for you. It is really necessary that we start to think about these things, because the safety issues of running units, across the city for what is a non-emergency situation. And again, that's something that maybe if we had that technology in the forefront to be able to figure that out right away. So, and again, a lot of this kind of goes into what's next. These communities are everywhere, and they know that we don't have the ability to talk to them seamlessly, like instantaneously. So what it's doing is it's creating a lot of distrust, a lot of mistrust in government services. They don't call police. They don't call 911 when they need help, because they know in previous experience or through other community members, they know when that happens, they're going to sit on hold for a while. So
Mhm.
they just don't call anymore, or they find other means to get help. And this isn't just emergency services. This is all essential services. How do you report if your water main breaks out front? How do you report that if you can't pick up the phone and just call a number? If the dog next door is barking, if your trash didn't get picked up, all of these things are things that we kind of take for granted in society because we have the ability to call somebody and get it fixed. I can pick up the
Right.
phone, I can dial a number, and somebody answers, and I say, "Hey, come pick up my trash," or whatever. They don't have that ability. So it basically is creating marginalized communities because they don't have the ability to say, "Come fix my problem."
It reminds me though too,
Um,
like just on a kind of a customer service note, going back to the Starbucks example and talking about they don't know who to necessarily call because they don't know who's going to be able to speak their language.
Absolutely.
Also relates to that. He thought 911, I need help with something, that's the number I
Mhm.
call. And so I think just really quickly, like that's also a good reminder to be patient because this is another barrier within that language barrier.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it is, and it kind of goes. The onus is a lot of times on us, I think. Um, you know, to understand that there's language barriers, understand that they may not know. It's easy to know 911 equals help, but help for what?
Mhm.
And it's also the onus is on us to take advantage of these other avenues that we have, the technology avenues that we have, to put things in place to allow these people to communicate with us. And that's kind of this next thing. They're there. We need to equip our ECCs with the current technologies that are there.
No, don't make us
AI.
change. Don't do that.
We don't like the way things are, and we don't like change. That's
Nope.
public safety in a nutshell, right?
Yep.
Um, but yeah, AI and machine-based learning are there. It's available to us today. It's an easy implementation. They're not expensive things to do, but they're easy to implement. They're easy to come to bring on board. But it is a change. It's a change in the way we've done things, and I kind of relate that back to just text to 911 in general.
Mhm.
You know, text to 911's been around for a while. I have good friends who aren't in public safety who don't know that you can text 911 on a phone. We as an industry have not done a very good job of broadcasting that, of advertising that
Right.
that's available. And I think one of the reasons, I know a lot of the reasons, is because it's different. It takes a little while to have a text conversation when if you're trying to give EMD instructions, or you're trying to give, those things are very challenging over text. But the people that could truly, truly benefit from text to 911 are people who just can't pick up the phone and call. And these are your
Right.
non-English speakers, or your limited English speakers, or people who were nonverbal because of maybe a health problem. And again, your ASL community. So these are the ones that we really need to be doing a better job. We need to put the technology in place to be able to talk to them. And then we need to reach out to them, to their communities, to their advocacy groups, and say, hey, we now have this ability to talk to you instantaneously. And again, that goes into text, and that goes into, as we look forward and we move down the line to some voice translation transcription things, video with translation built into it. All of these things exist right now. We just have to implement them. We've got to get them implemented. And the second, we can implement all the technology in the world into the ECC, but if we don't tell the community it's available, it's useless. So it's a two-part thing. We have to put the technology in our PSAPs, in our ECCs, or any call centers. It could be 311, DPW, whatever that is. And then we need to get the word out to the community that it exists. It's there for you. Please use it. We can talk to you quickly and instantaneously. So,
Yeah, no, I love that.
um,
I think we forget that second piece of, okay, now we need to get it out
yeah,
there. And I think people are really
absolutely.
receptive when they feel like, you're meeting their needs. They don't have to
Absolutely.
adjust
Yep.
to call
Yep.
911. We can now come to them and meet them exactly where they are.
And bringing those communities into the decision making of the new technology that's there also gives them a great voice. If this new technology exists, a lot of times there's got to be some trial to it. Bring those communities in. They're the stakeholders. bring them in and say, hey, here's what we want to implement. How does this look to you? Can you guys help us test it? Can you guys help us work through the bugs? Let them have a voice in it, because again, they're the ones that are most affected by it. So they're going to go back to their communities and say, hey, they want us to be a part of the solution now.
Right. And it's just like, we talk about management has to do that with frontline of bringing them into the decision. You guys use it every day. How does it look? And then as frontline, it's our job as well to help them go to that community, like you said, and what's going to work best for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the frontline, we talk to 911 specialists and telecommunicators every day, all day long. I mean, that's, every conference that we go to, and we find that these people are our cheerleaders. When they see that they see the technology that's there, when they see it's available, they're jumping up and down and say, why don't we have this? Why don't we have this? When we get to that level, that administrative level, sometimes a lot of times we get we didn't know language was a problem. Well, then you're not talking to your people. You've got to talk to them on the ground. Anybody who's on this call that's an administrator, it's an ops manager, it's a 911 director, if you're here, talk to your people. Talk to the people that wear the headset every day, please. They're the ones that know the issues. Listen to them. Bring them into the conversation. So that's my PSA for today. So, yeah, so again, yes, the technology is here. It's, the platforms are available. The tech is available to put it out. We should be doing this. We should be in all languages. 911, what's your emergency? As many different languages as we can. We have the ability to talk to these people and bring them on board. So again, in the end, and I'll kind of see if anybody has questions, but this is the goal. This is our goal. We want to enable people, regardless of their language, regardless of what language they speak, or if they're able to speak at all, to communicate with all essential service. And this is it. And this is something that we should all be striving for, is to put things in place that allow all these people to communicate with us instantaneously. So,
awesome.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I don't know if anybody had any questions in the chat, but love to answer any questions that anybody has. And you guys all for joining.
Yeah, I'm really impressed that we made it within like the 20-minute goal, because I feel like we could have really gone crazy. I do, if you don't mind, I know you had a slide in there just about what needs to be in place by 2025. And since we have a couple minutes, if we want to kind of talk about that with what people should be working on, because it is, going to be required of us to have that.
Yeah, so the text to 911 capability is required. It was actually originally required it was supposed to have been last June, I believe, for all PSAPs across the country to be text to 911 compliant.
Gotcha.
Because of COVID, they actually pushed that back to 2025. We have found that there's probably 70% of PSAPs across the country are text to 911 compliant. But the one thing that very, very few of them have is the ability to translate those texts as they come in. So a text that comes in English, cool, we can deal with that. But a person who doesn't speak English, maybe they're Korean and their phone is Korean and they text in Korean. We do not have the ability to most places don't have the ability to receive that and translate it. But the technology is there. We can build that technology there. So people can text to 911 in their language, have it instantaneously translated when it's received at the call center, at the call taker position.
Awesome. So for anybody watching, if you don't have text, just know the time is ticking down. Yes, whether you're the leadership or you need to get with your leadership and make sure that that's in place, or you're working on getting in place, because there is that deadline, as Chris mentioned. Just my own personal curiosity. Are there certain languages that are kind of the top languages you're seeing as far as callers, besides maybe Spanish? Just because
English and Spanish. I mean, obviously English and Spanish are the two most spoken in the country. And it's jurisdictional. We go, Baltimore, Burmese, and Pashto, two of the biggest next to English and Spanish. We have up in the Northeast, there's a lot of Tinga, I believe, and Karen is another. Karen is like a dialect of Burmese, I believe it is.
Yeah.
In the Midwest, there's a ton of Somalian, of African dialects. Like Somalian is a big one, but it's different from community to community, and the more that people come to this country for whatever their reasons are, we're going to see those increase, and it's going to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah, Heidi in chat said Somali in her area. So you brought up Corinne, which when I was actually doing child protective services, we had somebody from a police department come in because they have a pretty high population. And it kind of goes along with this topic, but if I would just encourage anyone, if you do have a high population in your area, to learn a little bit about it. The officer that came in, he did a really good presentation, and I thought it was really interesting because he talked about within the Karen kind of culture, a man doesn't go talk to like another man's wife privately. So it was a domestic situation. They need to talk to the female involved, but that's not how their culture, operates, is for an officer to go talk to her and someone to talk to him separately. But I think even on the 911 side, it's important to kind of recognize those things so we can kind of determine and help with the response if possible. What information are they probably going to be comfortable giving us, whether it's via text or voice or anything like that. That just reminded me of that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And it's understanding the communities that you serve, and whether it's from the ECC side or the police department side or the fire and EMS side, really understanding those communities. And again, you see a lot of Asian communities, you come in and the grandmother may be sick or somebody may be sick, but a lot of times they expect you to talk to the man in the house or it causes some uneasy feelings when you go and you try to immediately talk to, the person who you were there for, and you disregard the what their normal is. So it's just learning these communities, using our community outreach methods to understand who they are, where they are, and understand the best ways that we can communicate with them, putting the technology in place so we can have, so they can text us. Almost all of them, everybody knows how to text, and we're seeing those numbers grow. Right now right now a lot of agencies say text 911 is the numbers are low, but as we increase, and especially as we put things in place to allow these people to text to us, you're going to see those numbers go up dramatically. So, and then, so just having that technology in place that's allowing these people to communicate with us, whether it's on the 911 side or whether it's on the 311 side or the 988 world, again, another place that this technology has to be put in place with a lot of other technology that 988 needs right now. Right. But we have got to figure that one out of, putting these things in place that allow these people to talk to us instantaneously, right away, and allow us to get that who, that what and where and who, so we can get the resources to them right away.
Yeah. And Greg in the chat, since I have you, he just had a convey 911 specific. Do you guys do call audio too, or just text messages?
Working on audio. We're going to be rolling out very soon. We're in a testing phase of it right now, of being able to listen to a caller and get a translated transcription on the screen of their line of what they're saying. So yeah, we're really excited about that, to be able to do that. And then and very soon, with that same technology, that's going to be put into an app, and in the field, the same technology on a mobile device. So when anyone in the field has the ability to communicate with people once it's in the field. So, usually when somebody calls 911 and they're not English speaking, they're still not English speaking when the officer or whoever gets to them.
Right.
So we have to figure out a way there. So yeah, the same technology that we're using for voice translation transcription, we're going to put there, and they'll be able to do that in the field. And then on the back end, as I said, we also have a partnership with a really, really cool live interpretation service that's not the two main players. And we're really excited about that because, again, technology is not going to solve everything. And we need to have the ability to pull those people in. But it's a different way of doing it, and we're really excited about that too.
I was going to say, and talking louder does not make them.
Doesn't work. Yep. The louder you speak does not make them.
talking louder. It's not.
Yeah, I've had to have that conversation with many of my my partners in the public safety world over the years.
Yeah, just an interesting social experiment. And as you watch people do that, I'm always fascinated how that kind of goes in their mind.
Right.
But awesome. So much, and may have to have you back for another episode to kind of go down one of the many avenues we probably could have gone down. Greg has one more question. How long do language translation services take to come online once summoned by a PSAP?
For I'm guessing Greg's talking about like if you want the technology, like the implementation services of the technology. I'm assuming
that would be my interpretation.
Yeah, very quickly. The technology that we have right now can be implemented very quickly. It's not on premise. It's all cloud-based web, and it can be turned on really quickly. So there's not a lot of overhaul when it comes to that. We don't have to come in and build out systems. We just basically turn it on.
And you're not one of the other players, but would you say that's pretty common? I mean, for this type of technology, there's usually not, a lot.
Yeah, it depends upon how it's coming in. And there's some players that are kind of an over-the-top solution, similar to us, and there's other players that it's built into call handling, gotcha. Which is a much larger uplift. So yeah, it's basically finding out, what's available out there, what suits your PSAP the best, and selecting that one. Sometimes it's cost, sometimes it's, if you're in the middle of an upgrade or something like that, figuring those things out. And we're more than happy to talk to anybody about the best path forward for them.
Gotcha.
So,
well, Heidi said yes, come back please, so the people have spoken. And
yeah,
we'll
awesome. We'd love to
at some point. But kind of hitting that 30-minute mark. Want to keep these, those shorter bite-sized ones.
Absolutely.
I am going to go ahead for those watching live, throw in the chat for our next ECC Essentials in 2 weeks. I'm excited. Erica, Lakey, and I will be just talking about navigating conferences, which is always kind of a fun topic because like this one, you can go a bunch of different ways. Maybe encourage some of you to start speaking at conferences because I know that people talk about it, but they need a little extra encouragement to do it. But other than that, thank you again, Chris. This has been awesome. We will work on getting this uploaded to Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. You can access the replay via the same link, and you should get an email with it as well. If you have any questions, what is your email, Chris?
Sure. If you want to put that in the chat, it's chris.dew, D-E-W, at convey911.com.
Got that. And then for anyone listening, they can grab it. If you have any questions at all for Chris, feel free to email
me. And I look forward to the conferences. I feel like I live at conferences lately, and I would say my one big piece of advice: go to the bar afterwards. That's where everything gets done. That's where
we got to put the disclaimer there. Not for the drinking, for the networking, connecting.
And do not get into a game of cards with Halcyon's mom. You will lose. You will very much lose. She is pretty good. So
fair. I definitely forgot about that. We also have to come to be the difference if you want to know what we're talking about. So
yes, absolutely.
Be there next year. With that, I will end it. Make sure to like our ECC Essentials Facebook page to stay up to date on all ECC Essentials related things, and hope to see you guys next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody. Look forward to talking to you guys.